On today's episode of Fin Too Deep, I'm joined by Neal Driscoll, and we're going to talk about what the Miami Dolphins should do at quarterback now that Tua Tagovailoa is down. Should they ride it out with Skylar? Should they add a veteran that they should win some games with? Or should they sit pat and wait until the draft? We're going to talk about all of that. Plus, has De'Von Achane locked up the number one spot as the top running back in the Miami Dolphins running back room over Raheem Mostert? We're going to talk about all of that and so much more. Please do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into this.
Touchdown! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field on the near side, that open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it over the touchdown again! Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw, blitz coming, and get to him. No, he takes off running, and he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one. It's Fin Too Deep, and I appreciate all of you for coming through. We're going to talk a lot about the situation with Tua and the whole quarterback deal today. But before we do, Neal, give the people your reaction to everything that went down Thursday night, since that's usually the day we have our show. Give everyone your thoughts of what transpired, not only about Tua, but also the loss itself.
Yeah, man. I woke up for that all night. I was so excited for that football game. Thursday night football, I thought it was the opportunity for the Dolphins to exercise some of those demons, change some of those narratives. And, there's the before and the after the Tua injury, and the before was a football team that looked unprepared, looked unserious, that folded under the bright lights. Tua didn't play well. The offensive line was abysmal. If your name wasn't De'Von Achane, Calais Campbell, or Chop Robinson, you might want to go donate your paycheck to charity. It was pathetic, right? Like, let's just call it what it was. We talk a lot about McDaniel. We talk a lot about Tua. For me, it starts at the top. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey. In these measuring stick games, you are paid to be elite. And it looked awful. I mean, this is a common theme now, and I was already frustrated, right? Like, I think we all were. If we had to wake up and it was 31-10, we lost the Bills, I think it's pretty easy to dust yourself off because some teams just have your number, right? McDermott, he makes Mike McDaniel look like a school coach, right? Like, it just is what it is. I will never predict us to beat the Bills, so I see it at this point. But then we have the Tua injury and, devastated, deflated, depressed. Those are the words that come to my mind. I mean, reason for us, this is, we love this football team, right? But I think we also agree that, Tua is our favorite football player. And that's what makes this hard. And it's the man off the field. And we've seen him posturing on the field 2 times in the last 2 years, man. And that's terrifying, right? Like you and I are fathers. The father element comes into it. And I mean, it's absolutely brutal that we're here again, right? Like, it's absolutely brutal. And someone asked me this, who was not a Dolphins fan yesterday. They said, what's your expectations on the Dolphins season? I said, if Tua misses 6 or more games, I don't think the Dolphins can even come close to making the playoffs. Like, it is what it is. It's not. I'm not happy to say that, and I think there's still talent on this team, but it's kind of like what we saw with the Jets last year with Aaron Rodgers. 4 snaps in, their season was over. We'll talk more about what we think might happen or what we want to happen with Tua. But until we have medicals and have news, it's hard to project what on a football field matters. I think, what I take is, as much as I love this football team, I care about Tua Tagovailoa, the human, even more. And I do hope and pray that he is healthy, that everything's good, and that he has time to sit with his family and make a decision that's best for him and his family. Because it's not about Neal Driscoll. It's not about Dolphins fans. It's not about the NFL. It's not about the Miami Dolphins. It's about Tua Tagovailoa and his family, man. And I think getting that organized, making the right decision there matters most. And what does that mean for the Dolphins? Well, we'll talk a little bit about what we think could happen here, but right now, it's a great unknown. I'll say this. We just talked about this. Las Vegas still has them as a favorite traveling to Seattle next week. So that speaks to the talent of this football team. And we've seen this team rally behind Skylar Thompson before. And look, I'm not going to pretend I'm a Skylar Thompson fan. I was begging them to upgrade the position, but I do think this Miami Dolphin team could rally because their quarterback fell and rally around that and come with some more swagger. So the Bills game, not good enough. The Tua injury, one of the darkest days I can remember in 36 years of being a Dolphins fan. And, now we're all on the edge of the seat seeing kind of what comes next. And, I think you nailed it in the kickoff of the show. Is there trades they can make? Do we look at the draft? How do they handle this? And it's a big enigma right now, and the Miami Dolphins are at a crossroads.
How long do you think he's going to be out for? Because I've been on record saying I think he's out till the Arizona game.
Yeah, and that's the $1 million question. And here's what I think. I don't think Tua Tagovailoa is going to retire.
Either do I.
And there's 2 reasons. First, there is the contract, right? Him retiring would forfeit over $120 million in guaranteed money. And I know that your health is worth more than money. But when you pair that with what we know about Tua, when you live in this world of the draft and investigating and breaking down players, you and I both know that there's something inside of Tua, a fire that's just not like anybody else that's on this football team. This guy is the ultimate competitor. He is not going to allow his career to go out like this. And, he's going to probably have a war in the Tagovailoa household with his wife, his parents, his siblings. But, Tua Tagovailoa is an absolute warrior. Don't let that nice smile and the Hawaiian, laid back kind of guy fool you. There's a fierce warrior inside of there. And I think Tua is going to see what this is. Dr. Chow, who's the NFL doctor that we all know, said that every concussion is different. It's kind of like a snowflake. And, it could be something where he's cleared after the Seattle game. I think he's going to, because the Dolphins in the history, they're going to play it safe. And I think that he's going to be out until at least after the bye week. But I do think we need more news, and we should have probably more news early next week on some of the medical stuff that will be released. But with that said, man, I don't think this is the final chapter of Tua Tagovailoa. I just don't think he's going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I believe if he was cleared this week, they would tack on an extra 2 weeks.
Yeah, they'll be safe. And the NFL is going to put pressure on them, and the Dolphins will be under the microscope, like always. But Tua is just he's not going to. And it was scary. I don't know what you think about it, but I saw someone show that he fell and it hit his head a few plays before that run.
Yeah. Well, and don't forget the Jags game. Okay, so I've already told people this, but I'll tell you this because you probably haven't heard me talk about it. So after the game, I had a conversation with Britt, and she brought up a good point. He looked similar to, remember how he started after he got his bell rung against Buffalo, how he started off against the Bengals?
Yeah.
Notice how he was off on the Tyreek throw, when he led Tyreek too far out of bounds. He was off on throws he makes with his eyes shut, right?
Right.
Remember against the Jags, there was the roughing the passer, and there was also the hit along the sidelines that remember McDaniel wanted the flag for. And if you go back and watch it, his head hit the turf after the one on the sideline. So we were wondering, did he get his bell rung and had to turn around on a short week again, and then he got his bell rung again, and here we are?
Right, and that could happen, man, because even that when he hit his head against Buffalo, he hit hard.
Yeah, he did.
Hit hard. And
someone clipped that up and put it on Twitter, right? I saw it on Twitter yesterday. Yeah.
And the hit with Hamlin wasn't hard, and that makes me think that there could have been something before. But again, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about the human brain. I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
Like too many people are trying to do that. Like, like the reality of it is it happened at some point. Who knows exactly when? And it was bad. And that's what I do know. And, you know, the good news, I think, is that it seems like he's alert and communicating with players already.
Neal, that's why how he was after the game is why I think he's going to be back, because it's not like he was stretched off and taken to the hospital. They said he was walking around the locker room after the game, talking to the players and asking them how they are.
Yeah, Tua is special, man. Like, I'm just telling, like, he's special. Like, look, he played like shit. He was probably on pace to have his worst game ever against the Bills that game.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter. Doesn't change anything. He's special. He's a franchise quarterback. He's a top 10 quarterback in this league. He was going to come back and tear up Seattle this week if he was playing. Like, that's what Tua does. I will say this. I hope that we're right, because this would be one of the saddest ends to a Miami Dolphins chapter of all time for me, because of a 26-year-old franchise that you just provided. And I see people like trying to figure out the salary cap to like see how the Dolphins can get out of it. Like, man, I don't want to get out of that contract. I want that guy being our quarterback on Sunday.
Yeah, if he's healthy. Yeah,
right, man. I think it's like,
well, because people got agendas at work here, Neal. That's the thing.
It was a disaster after, and like I don't think it's bad to have the conversation that we're going to have today about what options are around it. Like, look, we spend a lot of money to support this football team, and we've talked about Aaron Hernandez murders. We talked about O.J. Simpson. Like, there's no topic that's off limits. With that said, there is a respect factor, I think, that is due to Tua and his family here. Like, the people that are just kicking him to the curb, like he's irrelevant and he's done. Like, you have not been paying attention to what Tua Tagovailoa is. A lot of people could have collected that insurance money when his hip was bad at Alabama, had generational wealth, be making $300,000 a year just off the interest of that contract, and been happy. Like, this guy, the decision here isn't going to become just financial for him. This is his love. This is his passion. Yeah. This is what he's been doing since he was a little kid. And I will say, the Monte Teo stuff, some of the stuff that I saw, that moved me, man. Like I'm not afraid to admit that, like, I had tears in my eyes when he was on the damn field. I spent all night researching, trying to figure out what I could do. Like, it was awful, man. It was as sad as I've been as a Dolphins fan. I don't care about wins and losses. When these guys are your players, like, I look at my son, Tua is his Dan Marino. Tua looks at my son like I looked at Dan Marino. And I saw him with tears in his eyes, asking me questions. Like, that hurt, man. That hurt me in my soul. And I'll say this. I don't really give a shit about the outcome of this season. I'd love to see him come back, and I'd love to see him make the playoffs. I just really care if Tua Tagovailoa, the man, is okay and gets to do what's best for him. I know that sounds cliche, but, like, if that means turning the chapter on the Miami Dolphins and we do have to worry about the draft, you and I will be well-versed to discuss it. You know what I mean? Like, that is what it is. At the end of the day, we all want what's best for him.
Let me ask you this. Concussion aside, are you more alarmed with what you saw before the concussion in regards to this team, or whether Tua is healthy or not, whether they're a legitimate playoff team or not? And I say that because, you know, you had them running that too high shell. You had McDaniel not showing the patience needed to basically run them out of that too high shell, right? You know, take what they're giving underneath, you know, mesh concepts, short level concepts, you know, get the middle of the field, draw the defenders up. They're basically daring you, hey, we don't, you know, it's one of those games where, because they're playing that too high shell, you basically need to slowly eat away at them to pull them up, and you need your defense to do the job, because your drives are going to be long, and they're going to be, you know, you're going to have long sustained drives that end in points, and you got to hope your defense does its job. So when you get the ball back, you continue running the ball, taking the underneath, and drawing them up, because that's all by design. Are you more alarmed that we still see the flaw in the play calling, the flaw in clock management? I mean, post game, he said on that interception to Grant Dubois, Berrios, and Chosen were the receivers out there. He said after the game that he couldn't get Mike McDaniel said he couldn't get Jalen Waddle out there. He wanted to, but he couldn't because there wasn't enough time left on the clock. But this guy will waste timeouts like it's going out of sketch style. But for personnel, let it roll. Are you more alarmed with the red flags that were popping up? Because a few people I've talked to privately, they're alarmed by, even when Tua was looking healthy, Mike McDaniel as a coach isn't showing the ability to adjust, adapt, and have answers for when teams are taking away that threat. And he shows impatience. He wants the big play right away. You know, he'll run, get 12, 11, 8-yard chunks. And instead of just going down the field and doing it and then coming, getting the ball back and doing it again, he'll do it 3 or 4 times and, got to go back to the big play, or, got to throw the ball 3 times in a row and then we're punting or kicking a field goal. What are your thoughts? Because there was a lot of alarming red flags. And another thing to your point, Neil, when you said some teams just have your number, right? Like, nothing went our way. Like, the bounce off Grant Dubois was a big enough bounce that it falls to a corner how many yards away? You know what I mean? Chosen, right? Sure, he probably had to run a deeper route, but he slips on the field. You know, it just, nothing was going. It's one of those where even we're at home, nothing goes our way against the Buffalo Bills. It's like, you know, when everyone talks about the curse of the Tequesta, it really shows up when we play the Buffalo Bills.
Right. And look, you know, you look at it, Josh Allen didn't have to do much. You know what the Bills' game plan was? Just go out and watch the Dolphins fall all over themselves and make mistakes. Going for it on 4th and 3 on your own territory, down whatever you were, disgusting. With the play calling, like, look, I think Mike McDaniel is on the edge of being a top 10 coach in this league, but I think we're in purgatory where we are a good team, but we're not a contender. Whenever we line up against the Chiefs with Andy Reid, the Bills with Sean McDermott, the Ravens with John Harbaugh, the 49ers with Kyle Shanahan, we are bringing a knife to a gunfight, and it shows. And Mike McDaniel, through 2 games, has been horrific. I think he has regressed in play calling. I think he thinks this is an 8-year-old playing Madden where you just pass. Like, our game plan against the Buffalo Bills was as bad of a game plan as I've seen since Cam Cameron. Like, it's that bad for me. I think it's disgusting what we came out here and did. But I think there's some culpability that is shared here, and it's with Chris Grier, because this team building is not good enough. Grant Dubois, Braxton Berrios, and Robbie Chosen should never be in a formation when you just pay Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the football field.
Especially on 3rd down on a key down, bro.
And the pass, I played receiver, this is how you're coached, was perfect. It's what you want out of the break. Get your damn head around, get your hands up, and let the ball hit your hands and make a move. That's a play that a good receiver not only catches to move the chains, breaks that tackle and makes something happen. Grant Dubois, goodbye. Dubois somewhere else, dude. You are not the guy that I want on this damn roster. Just be honest. But, like, insanity, dude, is what we've seen for years, depending on the same people that are not dependable. Terran Armstead, you're a good player. Man, I don't ever want to see you with a Dolphins uniform again, because I know when I see you, it's going to be a one-night stand, man. You're going to be there for a moment, and then you're going to be gone. Everybody who told me I'm an idiot because I was like, don't resign Raheem Mostert. It's week 2, and the guy's already out. Already out. Jeff Wilson, already out. Odell Beckham, I like the signing for cheap, but he's already not helping this team. Like, you cannot play injured players that stay injured, man, and think they're going to help us. So, like, I think the roster building, that offensive line, Austin Jackson, Lester Cotton, Robert Jones, those 3 guys specifically, where are your marbles, man? You let the grown men just disrespect you. Von Miller looked like Von Miller in his prime against Austin Jackson.
Yeah, Austin Jackson.
It was awesome. Austin Jackson was worse than Lester Cotton.
Well, Neil, remember, what was the point I was making in the offseason when we lost Robert Hunt? What's the ripple effect going to be on Austin Jackson? And we saw a little bit of it yesterday on Thursday, and it was not good, bro.
We have one lineman that I think we can rely on. It's Aaron Brewer, and that's the one that I was worried about. I think everybody
and even
else
his snapping was a little
Yeah, but I think everyone else could go, man. I really think you need 4 starters. And I think Patrick Paul, I want to see Patrick Paul get the reps. I don't care if Kendall Lamb's more
because Kendall Lamb didn't even look good, bro.
I know. And Pro Football Focus, man, those who like it, I do not know what they watch. Kendall Lamb was not the 3rd best player on the Miami Dolphins on that game. There's no chance. He looked like shit. Like, I'm just being honest. The Buffalo Bills front was just coming there and taking those guys' candy, and they laughed it off, and we all were like thinking, we all knew it was bad. We all tried to convince ourselves it wasn't. But, like, there's just it's something wrong. And I'm not saying fire Mike McDaniel, because I do think he's a guy in 3 years that you're going to look back and he's going to grow and take his lumps and get better.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to be better for this team in its next window than on this window.
The guy I think is in trouble if this stuff implodes is Chris Grier, because you basically used all your 9 lives. We were all surprised that he made it through the Flores firing, right? And basically he made it through on the precipice of, we're going out to get a coach we like, blah, 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 blah. And you got to basically ride with it. I think McDaniel, to your point, I think there's too much potential. I think he'll get another shot because they'll turn around and they'll say, like, a new GM comes in, let's say. He'll turn around and say, hey, Mike, I'm keeping you, but I want you to bring in a legitimate play caller, whether it's you promote Darrell Bevel and you let him call the plays, or you go out and bring a legitimate guy. You got to pass over the play calling duties. I still think there's outs for Mike McDaniel. I think Chris Grier has run out of outs. Now, we can talk about, sure, has he made big trades like Tyreek Hill and such like that? 110%. But the problem is the foundation you put together right now is flawed. And it's, to your point, we're good, we're not great. And that's a problem right now with all the money that's been spent, all the, and that was just even handed out this offseason, all the resources we've used. Like, let me ask you this. Do you really think Garfinkel and Ross are going to trust him with all these resources all over again? No, I don't see it.
No, and I hope Ross, I know there's a rumor he's on 15% of the team or whatever. I hope Ross steps aside soon, man. I think he is just an idiot when it comes to I love that he
I don't think he's an idiot. The problem is this is the problem I think it is, bro. He's surrounded himself with certain football minds that aren't good enough. And because he's a real estate guy, he's relying on these football minds to begin up. Like, this is what I think is going to eat at him, Neil. The media and us fans have been stressing about the offensive line since Flores was here. Okay. I know for a fact Stephen Ross reads guys like Omar Kelly and stuff like that. I know that for a fact. So I know, so just by saying that, we know that Stephen Ross is probably, up to speed on the whole Grier kind of mocking all of us in terms of, oh, you guys are more worried about it than we are, et cetera, et cetera. I think he's going to turn around, and if this offensive line continues to be detrimental to the success of this team, I think he's going to turn around and he's going to say, listen, I'm paying you to be one of the brightest football minds in this building. Why are the fans and the media right and getting this right while you're allowing this to happen? Because even beyond Tua, right? Like, Tua's injury is not on the offensive line by any stretch of the imagination. I think that third interception was all on Tua. It was one of the worst decisions he could have made. But look at what happened before he made that terrible decision. The whole left side of the line collapsed, right? Like, the whole Lester Cotton and Robert Jones are not competent starters in the NFL.
No, dude. And then I don't even know if they're competent backups. Like, I can say this.
I agree with that.
You're never going to be a contender if you're starting guards are Liam Eichenberg and Robert Jones. I think that's a fair statement. And look, I think when you look at those big trades, the Tyreek and all and the Ramseys, they were great moves. But the thing that hurt is that he sacrificed the things that matter most to make it happen. He forgot that football is ultimately won in the trenches, and you just paid the biggest contract to your quarterback, and you're going out there and protecting them with a JV offensive line, and it was malpractice. So I think Chris Grier, honestly, I'll say this. I think Chris Grier has already done enough to get fired. I think it should be done. And Mike McDaniel, I think he's going to definitely get a mulligan, but I will say this, and true or false question. Through 2 games this season, Anthony Weaver has outcoached Mike McDaniel to exorbitant amounts. Like, it has not even been close. Because
where I am worried with Weaver, though, is Ramsey looks like a shell of himself right now. He might still be hurt, but Fuller looks like your best corner. But where I'm worried about with Weaver is, between Tank Bigsby and James Cook, we are getting cooked on the inside gap runs right now, dude.
Yeah, well, I do think it's a personnel thing, man. I think outside of Zach Sealer, and I think we don't have a true nose. Like, Benito Jones, man, was nowhere on the other night, dude. He was just gonna move. And David Long had a good game, but man, he chooses the wrong
gaps all the time.
All the time, man. Like, it is I'll say this:
Jordan Brooks has been better than David Long, I think.
I'm out on David Long resigning him at this point.
I don't think they're going to. Yeah,
I don't think he's a bad football player, but I want a more instinctful a linebacker to pair with Jordan Brooks. That's where I am, and I think David Long's not going to resign here at this point. Like, he he's not been awful. I want to qualify because everyone's gonna be like, Neal, you said he's been good, but the plays like the one James Cook run that was like 15 yards right up the gap, like he legitimately went to the wrong, like literally went outside and the guy cut right in front of him, and like it was like I'm like, dude, like come on, that's what you learn.
And how slow. And Poyer looks like he's lost more than just a step, eh?
He's a novelty at this point, man, and I like his leadership.
I would give Marcus May and Elijah Campbell more opportunities, dude. I'm not lying.
Yeah, I would too, and I think Jordan Poyer could be more of a box linebacker for this team, but I don't think he needs to be out in coverage, man. He's lost. He's exposed. The Bills knew right where to attack him. You know what I mean? Now I'll say this: I will say that Calais Campbell has looked really good, and I don't think bringing him back on another deal for cheap. But like I don't. The team is what it is. I still think they would have made the playoffs, though. I do, and I still think they would have competed for the division because again, the Bills own us. They did the same thing to us last year, and then they went and lost to teams that they shouldn't lose to, right? So I don't think it would have been a cool representation of what it would have looked like. But I still don't think, and I've said this before the season. Like, if we played a playoff game against the Chiefs, they'd beat us. If we played a playoff game against the Ravens, they'd beat us. Those teams are just so physical, man. Like, that's the thing.
If we had a better, if we were more confident in our trenches, we'd probably be more confident in winning.
Right.
100%. If our trenches were built better, but it is what it is.
I think that's what they have to do in next year's draft. But
they had scouts at the LSU game today, so maybe they're watching Emery and Campbell.
Yeah, Emery and Campbell. Yeah, and there's in this class, dude. There's Arizona, Jonas Savania.
Well, I just know they had scouts there today. That's all. Yeah, at the LSU game.
And there's a lot of good interior defensive linemen. There's good 0-techs, 3-techs, 5-techs. Like, this is a good draft for what the Dolphins need. But now there's a little caveat, and we're going to get into it. But
before we do, let's go over some donations here. Godchild says, how active should this team be before the trade deadline? That all depends on their record,
sellers.
Bro.
They could be sellers.
Yeah.
They could be
I mean, you could be turning around saying, and you could be selling Calais Campbell off if you don't think you're going to win and he wants to go to a contender. Ferdinand says Tyler Huntley's on the Ravens practice squad. He costs nothing. He's a winner. PJ Walker is also available. He's 29 as a starter. This PJ Walker narrative is a little too much for me, bro.
But I like Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, so do I. Deontay Moore. If worried about Tua, how do we kick this mentally weak cloud we have had for decades? The lack of mental toughness was and is my biggest concern. That's just the call. That's you got to bring in new players and continue changing the culture. That's how you change that. I mean, we started on the right foot here this year with bringing in Calais Campbell. I mean, Poyer mentally for the culture is good, but physically where he's at in his game right now doesn't look like he's where we need to be. But in terms of the Bills, people want to just blame Tua. This is deeper than a Tua thing. McDaniel can't solve McDermott. Flores couldn't solve McDermott. I mean, wasn't Josh Allen 5-1 against us before Tua even arrived?
Yeah,
right?
Man, look, and Tua, like the reason Tua is trying to put his head down and stop not slide in that scenario is the guy's trying to ignite a football team that sleepwalks when they play the Buffalo Bills. When he did that against the Jets a few years, he ignited this team when he ran over Michael Carter, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone who's sitting there like Tua should slide. Yeah, no shit. He knows that. But he's trying to make a football play that could change the landscape of this game. When that happened, the game was not technically over yet.
But my only rebuttal to that is he's got to learn. You are Tom Brady. You are Peyton Manning. You are Drew Brees. These guys don't take off, let alone lead with their head when they do. And God's child says we all know guys that would risk life and freedom for that bag. But that's my whole thing, right? Like, you got to realize, brother, fuck this nimble thing. You are a pocket quarterback. That's it.
Right.
Like, and if you want to get nimble, you better slide, brother. I mean, you've been through so much. You've got to slide. Almost 400 of you in the room. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. So let's get into this. Let's start off with this. What should the Miami Dolphins do at quarterback now that Tua Tagovailoa is hurt? Now, a few things before we get into that. Chris Nowinski, a neuroscientist and co-founder and CEO of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, he was asked how Tua Tagovailoa should proceed after Thursday's concussion by Barry Jackson. And he said, quote, considering Tua's concussion history and the risk that 2 concussions in a month increases the risk of developing chronic symptoms, I hope to see Tua out for at least 4 weeks, even if he is asymptomatic this week and clears protocol. All right. He also said, if Tua's symptoms continue to persist all season and he isn't cleared, a consideration of retirement would be appropriate. While each additional concussion is worrisome, unfortunately, the number of concussions alone doesn't tell us what to do next. So this could be a thing where he's, comes back for Arizona, or it could be a Sidney Crosby thing where this guy's having to sit in dark rooms, can't watch TV, and it just, now you've got to actually consider what your future is. So all that said, what should the Miami Dolphins do? Should they ride it out with Skylar and either hope you get wins or hope you get a better draft pick? Should they trade for a veteran option, or should they be focused on the draft? Now, I told you this before I let you go. I'm starting an agenda today if they're going for the draft. I like Jackson Dart. I'm a Jackson Dart guy, Ole Miss. I think he's looked really good this season so far. I also like Grant Nussmeier, but we talked. You think he's going to stay in LSU. Now, we know there's the Carson Becks. I don't think Carson Beck is,
we're not that bad. We won't be that bad.
Yeah, and Shedeur Sanders, I think he's overrated, overhyped, and I don't like how he was just selling his offensive line, throwing them under the bus. You know what I mean? Now, me and you are both intrigued with the upside and the ceiling of a guy like Jalen Milroe. Right. We can both agree with that. And there's a couple other guys in this draft too. And then I've already said it, so I'll let you go. But the 3 guys that I like for if you're going to trade is Davis Mills, because this is his second year in Slowick's offense, who is right. He used to be the quarterback coach in San Fran, so he has an understanding. I'd like Jameis Winston in terms of if it's just for the short term. But a guy I really want, and I don't know if they do it because we play them next week, and I don't know how long it would take for him to get caught up in the offense. But Sam Howell to me would be a home run. You could definitely win some games with that guy. What do you think they should do? Should they stay pat with Skylar? Should they add a vet, or should they be just ride out what they have and focus on the draft?
Dude, we were after the preseason begging this team to upgrade the backup quarterback position. And we had even mentioned that your quarterback has had a history of concussions, so that you need to be better versed in these situations. Look, I don't hate Skylar Thompson. I think for a 7th-round pick, he's been better than you can expect. But I know this right now. This guy is not going to do what Matt Moore did for us when it was, back when who was it who got hurt that season for us, when Matt Moore won 6 games and we ended up getting Tannehill instead of Andrew Luck, whatever year that was, 2012. But you named 3 names. Sam Howell, I won't repeat it because you said it, but I think that's a very
repeat the same one. Like I like Quinn Ewers, and I like I know everyone's a Cam Ward fan, but you would like Cam Ward, even though everyone's saying that. So just let it roll, bro. Say whoever you want.
Well, if we did a move existent, I do think the Ryan Tannehill thing would be cool, but I don't think he's a good fit for this offense.
Exactly.
I do think he's good at pushing the ball downfield with our receivers and our speed. It could be interesting, and I think
it's the same reason why I don't think Russell Wilson would be a good fit, bro, because he can't play in structure.
Right. I like Tyler Huntley. It's not a great fit for our offense, but the guy did win when Lamar was out and keep the Ravens in and went head-to-head with Joe Burrow in a playoff game. And then this is a crazy name, and it's like a Raven homer in me, right? Like, but dude, if the Dolphins could sniff Joe Flacco, I'd be interested in Joe Flacco. I know he doesn't offer well, but I'll say this: with our offensive line, he probably wouldn't make it through the season because he's a statue back in the pocket. But man, I actually think the Flacco Tyreek connection could happen. But I will say this: Sam Howell, I think out of anyone we mentioned, would be the best because I think Sam Howell's still a starting NFL quarterback.
So do I. But me and you both heard 2 names today, 2 different names. I heard they were sniffing around Mac Jones, and you heard
Kenny Pickett.
Oh.
Kenny Pickett would make me throw up my Captain Crunch, man. I would be disgusted if we got him. But in the draft, dude, there's 3 guys. I do like Jackson Dart like you. I like Jalen Milroe. And then I'm a huge Cam Ward fan. I have Cam Ward as my 17th overall player and my QB2 in this draft. So there are, but like, here's what I will say. Whether Tua comes back, right, or not, I think the Dolphins have to draft a quarterback early next year. Whether it's a contingency plan if Tua gets hurt, or if he says he's going to retire.
Like a Hurts type of thing where they took the guy in the second round when they still had Wentz.
Right. And I'll say this, because you made some great points earlier, but I can't recall a case that ever happened when someone was forced to retire medically. They usually get cleared. So it usually comes down to the discretion of the player. And, what that does mean is that if there's three options really though, but if Tua retires on his own merit and makes his decision, he foregoes over $120 million in guaranteed, and the Dolphins are practically off the hook, right? And they would owe him $32 million, and they can pay it all next year, or they can break it up where they pay $8 million in 2025 and the remaining 24 in 2026. If he's medically retired and neurologists and the team doctors say he'll never clear protocol, which again I think is a 1% chance of happening. Like I think it's that low. Then the Dolphins would be on the hook for the remaining guaranteed money of his contract over the duration of it. There's out certain time. They all have different penalties, but $49 million of that would be covered via insurance, which would not hit the cap. So there's a couple things. Or the Dolphins could say, we're going to cut Tua, which this is another thing I think is a 1% chance, and pay him $130 million next year. Just to get
they're not cutting him. They're not cutting him.
And that's not going to happen. So what's going to happen is Tua's either going to play football or retire on his own merit. So, those are the two scenarios that I think happen. But I do think they need to have the best backup quarterback in the league because this team is ready to compete. And if Tua goes down, they shouldn't have to worry about a guy like Skylar Thompson taking the reins.
Okay, so I would rather Skylar over Pickett. Now, I would take Mac Jones over Skylar. Because of what Mac Jones does, it would probably make sense in this offense that they would be able to make something work with Mac. Let me ask you this. Your thoughts, because I know there's people pushing the agenda. Your thoughts on Tom Brady, because he's 47. He would have to leave that. Now, apparently he didn't really get good reviews after week 1, but he would have to leave the booth. He would leave that cushy job that's paying him like $30 million a year, and he would have to come play behind this offensive line.
So I'll say this, because I'm against the norm here, where everyone's like, oh, he's never going to leave the booth for $375. Have we not paid attention to who Tom Brady is over the last 25 years? If you think of the greatest competitors of all time, if he's not one, he's two, right? That's who Tom Brady is. I think Tom Brady would be licking his chops for a scenario. He wanted to be the Dolphins quarterback. I know it's a pipe dream, and I don't know what we would get with a 47-year-old Tom Brady. I'm already, I'm on record saying I don't have much faith in a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I will say this: Tom Brady's different. He's a one-of-one. We've never seen anything like it. I think it's a very low probability, but one I'd welcome because it would give me a sense before he ever stepped foot on the field that this team could make a run.
And they're at least trying to. My whole thing, though, Neal, is I feel like you would need a guarantee that he's the starter for the rest of the year. I don't think he's coming back. Yeah. I think he's only an option if Tua's out. I
agree, but I would say this. People are he bought into the Raiders. He left that money at Fox to come back and play before. That money ain't going away. He's Tom Brady again, dude. This isn't, Jay Cutler come out and retire. Matt Ryan. This is a guy that can write his own ticket and do whatever the hell he wants. He can go get drunk on a Netflix TV show we all watch and we all laugh about what he said, even though 95% of the stuff that came out of his mouth was probably offensive, right? This guy walks on water in life. You know what I mean? He is who he is. Now, I don't necessarily think getting Tom Brady, I don't think at 47 years old, Tom Brady's better than 26-year-old Tua Tagovailoa. I don't. With that said, I do think there's an experience factor there. I'll say this: if Tua's done for the season, I think the Dolphins would be doing malpractice if they didn't at least ask, because they've already paid the first-round pick for him, right?
Yeah, that's true.
They've already got penalized for flirting with him. And that was when he was, 45 years or 44 years old. So, and from what I've seen, that guy looks like he's in elite health. And maybe we're idiots for even having this conversation. But I think I'm different than saying that Tom Brady doesn't need $375 million, guys. I hate to break it to you. He doesn't. So, that's what makes it dangerous, is when money doesn't matter in your life, you get to live out your dreams the way you want to. Hell, man, Tom Brady, if he came to this team and made a run with a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 24 years, that's in the position that it's in right now, there's no question that he's the best of all time. Maybe not just in football, but in any sport.
And Stephen Ross might give him that 15% that he's selling if he does that. Right? Let's be honest.
Right.
So
I don't disagree. Look, I would say this: as much as I hated playing against that guy, if he really did at some point have ownership in this team, I freaking love it.
Yeah,
it's Tom Brady. All that guy does is win.
So where are you at? Would you roll with Skylar till Tua's back? Would you get out of vet, or would you be focusing in on the draft and a guy like Ewers, Ward, Dart, Milroe, Sanders, someone like that?
I'd add a vet, and I'd still be focused on the draft. I would do both. I really would. I would go out and add a guy, because here's the thing. I disagree with Vegas. I think the Dolphins are going to have a very hard time going out to Seattle and winning.
110%.
I don't know how they're favored. And if they win that game, I've underestimated the guts of this football team. I'll say that, because that's a tough game to win anytime, to go to Seattle and play with a Mike McDonald defense, with maybe the best cornerback tandem in the entire NFL, and Devin Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen, right? So they're a good football team, but they definitely need a contingency, because if Skylar Thompson comes out, looks like a deer in headlights, this team needs to win. Because if Tua's out, let's say that he does come back in 5 weeks. Well, if this team's already lost 5 games, there's no point to bring him back, right? It's one of those things. So, you need to do whatever you can do. And I'm doubling down what I said earlier. Tua could come back and have a majestic season and win a playoff game, and I still think you need to at least draft a quarterback. Now, if Tua comes back and he's magnificent, maybe in the second round, but if he comes back and you have questions and you're worried, or he does, God forbid, get hurt in any fashion, not a concussion or any fashion, I'm all about spending a first-round pick on a quarterback at this point, because we're going to learn 2 things. We're going to learn that Tua was a way better quarterback than he was given credit for. Because even if you got Ryan Tannehill, that offense isn't going to hum like it did with Tua Tagovailoa. You're going to realize that if you were a Tua doubter, he's way better than people thought. But we're also going to realize is that you can't win in this league if you don't have one of those top 10 type of quarterback guys. And I don't care if the Dolphins spend the next 10 first-round picks on finding that guy. I do not want to sit another 20 years of my entire life with Cleo Lemon, Damon Hewer, Jay Fiedler, Dante Culpepper, Trent Green. I can't do it again. I might be dead by the time they find another franchise quarterback, man. So they have to throw every resource to get in this right. But they also going to have to do the agenda this offseason, where I don't care that Chris Grier doesn't draft offensive line in the first round. You better start damn doing it. You better start doing it, because this you cannot patchwork this team back together next year and think they're going to make a run. You're committed to Waddle. You're committed to Tyreek. You're committed to Ramsey. You're committed to McDaniel. Right now, you're committed to Tua Tagovailoa. I think you should be committed to Javon Holland, because letting that guy go will bite you in the ass. With that said, like Teron Armstead, Raheem Mostert, David Long Jr., Austin Jackson. Look, if Austin Jackson doesn't step it up, I'm about releasing him in the offseason. I'm just calling it like it is. So, there's a lot of people right now that have some weight on their shoulders, and they have to help navigate this team through some tough times. I will say this, that everyone's saying that Tua did not get hurt because of that offensive line. We don't know that. We started off the show by saying that. We don't know that. We don't know exactly when and where it happened. He was getting hit all night. It looked like David Carr in Houston in the first half of that game, man. That offensive line is a disgrace to football, right? Lester Cotton, Liam Eichenberg, Robert Jones, Austin. And I know this is harsh, but I feel like I have, as a voice in this community, have to put it out there, because there's too much fluff giving these guys a pass. They are not good enough. They will not protect our quarterback. We cannot go far with an offensive line. Robert Jones has been awful through 2 games. One of the worst players in football. I am so tired of seeing this offensive line not show up. and just allow our team to get battered. And I think that's where it starts, man. It starts in the trenches. It's hard to have great trench play when you invest in the Tyreeks and everything like that in the world. But you know what, man? You're the GM of this football team. You better find a way to get some talent on there and get it cheap then. We all beg for a veteran. I was begging for people like Mark Lewinsky and Phil Haynes. I'm not asking you to go find Larry Allen. And you can't even do that. And this is what you roll out, and you expect Tua to get through the season. I'll say this, man. There is malpractice by the Miami Dolphins front office. And I'm not blaming them for the Tua injury, but I am blaming them for what they're putting in front of that young man. It's not adequate. It's not good enough.
Someone asked in the chat, I was actually, he's in my top 8 my quarterbacks heading into this season right now. I'm high on this kid. Someone's asking in the chat, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Drew Aller from Penn State. How you feel about him? I like him. He's in my top 8 heading into this. He was in my top 8 quarterbacks heading into this season. What do you think about Drew Aller?
Yeah, I think he's number 7 on my current board. I like him a lot. I think he's going to stay at Penn State because I think if he comes back for another year, he's a guy that can flirt with the number 1 overall pick. I think he has those qualities. I mean, I want to see him against the Michigans and the Ohio States this year. I want to see that, man, because those are the battle tests you need. But he has looked really good early on this season. Yeah, I mean, and I do like him. And I'll say this: I see the notion that this isn't a good quarterback draft. Man, there's always a good quarterback in the draft. You just got to find them, right? You got to do your due diligence. There's 10 guys on my current top 10 that all could flirt with being first round picks. So when you think that there's not a guy and people tell you that, man, that's just hogwash, man.
That's true.
It's bullshit. There really are good talent people, and you don't have to spend a top 5 pick always to go get a guy. Whoever you get, if the Dolphins had to go to the draft and get a quarterback, you thought Caleb Williams walked into a good situation. You're walking into a situation with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and De'Von Achane for starters. Right? With the best schematic offensive guy maybe in football besides Kyle Shanahan. There's not a better place for a young quarterback to want to come. So I this whole notion that the Dolphins should go trade for a Kirk Cousins or something like that. No. Let's operate finding useful players that can build around this team, and hopefully we don't have to get to that point. And whoever that guy we get is just holding a clipboard. Again, I'm not burying the career of Tua Tagovailoa. I think it's way premature to do that. I respect the man enough, and there's a fire in him, right, that burns a little bit differently. And that's what they said about Old 13 when he was here in Miami. Tua Tagovailoa. And what we've learned this week, man, is how loved he was by his teammates, man. He is loved by the league, teammates. You got Bills fans with a microphone on ESPN wishing Tua prayers. Buffalo Bills fans have donated $16,000 to the Tua charity, man. It's polarizing conversation, but people actually care about this young man. And, man, I will say this. I have learned not to ever doubt that kid's will because that hip injury would have eliminated most people.
Listen, I kind of agree with Devin Jordan to an extent here. He says, hey, guys, I think it might be time to pull the plug on the Chris Grier rebuild. I don't want him drafting our players in the 2025 draft. I agree to this extent. If Tua is out and we are searching for a new quarterback, I don't want Chris Grier a part of that draft because that's basically a soft reboot at best. At worst, it's going to be a full rebuild. But I agree. If we are moving for a new quarterback and we got to start rebuilding here a little bit to an extent, like a soft rebuild so we can, retool this team and then try to go back at it. I agree. I don't want him part of that process. I would want a new guy coming in and who would bring in a new scouting department, basically. So I agree with that to an extent. You know what I mean? But I still think if this thing blows up and this implodes, even with the Tua injury, I think Grier is going to be out of. I got a sense that Grier could potentially be out of a job. Wow, what do you think?
Yeah, if he made the playoffs and we lost in the first round again, I think he should have been fired. So I think he should be fired at this point. I really do.
Yeah.
And I think he's dead man walking. And, in the unfortunate situation that Tua Tagovailoa says, hey, guys, I got 2 kids. I love this game, but I love them more. I have to walk away. First of all, I would 110% respect that decision, and I think Tua should be in the Ring of Honor in Miami if that happened. I do. Secondly, the nucleus of this team, and some of these guys aren't here because of their contractual obligation, would be Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Ramsey, Achane, Jalen Phillips, and Chop Robinson. And you could throw Jordan Brooks in there if you wanted to, because he's more of a above average player to a nucleus type player. You could say Patrick Paul, Jalen Wright. I would add to that list. I would add Jalen Wright to that list, and I hope that they would make Javon Holland part of that list. But I would say that Bradley Chubb, post June cut, you save $20 million. You got to make that move. I would say Teron Armstead, if you're not going to retire, we're going to release you. Sorry, buddy. It is what it is. Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, those guys would go.
I'd bring back Jonnu.
Yeah. Oh, I would keep Jonnu. I would say this. Even though Kendall Fuller's look good in Miami, you probably could get a trade piece for him at a deadline. I'd probably move him and try to look at the corners in the draft. Like I would think that I would look at who the nucleus is, identify those 10 guys, get big money off the books, get a young quarterback in here, get your cap space good, and then just kind of the rebuild wouldn't be as miserable, but the guy buying the ingredients would have to be someone different because it just look. I like a lot of the moves Chris Grier's made. I don't know if there's bigger advocates for Chris Grier than you and I in the community, man. But the reality of it is we tell it like we see it. When the results don't come, hey, man,
got to pay the piper, bro.
Yeah, that's what you get paid to do. And if the results don't come, they have to do what's best for this organization. But the Armstead, the Chubbs of the world, like this is their swan song. I feel like this team's got to get younger. They got to use. They could save $30-some million in cap space right there and completely rebuild their offensive line. You know what I mean? Like it's big money.
Daryl Wallace says, "Great show, gentlemen. I'm still sick to my stomach about what happened to Tua. Thank you for giving your thoughts about the state of the team." 445 people in the chat on YouTube right now. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Has Achane locked up the running back one spot? Like, is it has the torch been passed? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, brother, I wouldn't even think about taking away opportunities for Achane for Mostert when he comes back. Like, I think he's undeniably the running back one right now, and I think Mostert 2 games in. I mean, me and you have talked about Mostert for a couple of years now, and him not being able to stay healthy. 2 games in, can't stay healthy. Problem is, this is too talented of a backfield, and I think Achane has stepped up. I think he's too diverse. He's too multiple. He's too explosive, and he's just too much of a playmaker. And he's too, let's be honest, 13 touchdowns in 13 games. He's too much of an end zone magnet for me. Achane's got to be running back one now moving forward. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he surpassed Jalen Waddle as the second best player on this offense outside of the quarterback, right? So it's Tyreek Hill, then it's De'Von Achane for me. And I love Waddle. It's not really what Waddle's not doing. It's really what Achane is doing. Achane is doing what Christian McCaffrey does in San Francisco with a disgustingly poor offensive line, right?
Yeah.
And look, Christian McCaffrey is a top 5 player in this league. Like, don't take what I'm saying literally and try to argue with me that McCaffrey's better than De'Von Achane. But stats don't lie. Since he's been in this league, he averages more yards per carry than any running back in this league. He scores a touchdown almost every game he plays in. And every time the lights are bright and Tyreek folds and the offense does nothing, De'Von Achane against all those teams, the Bills, the Ravens, finds a way to be the best player on the team. So that tells me a lot. And I think that this is a year too late. I think that Raheem Mostert comes back. He should be the number 3 running back on this team.
You think Wright should be 2?
I think Wright should be 2. And I don't think I like Jeff Wilson. I think if it's a short situation, maybe Mostert's the 4th in a lot of these scenarios, right?
Well, like Wright outsnapped Wilson this week, eh? He had more snaps than him.
Yeah, and look, everyone's like, oh, look at Wright's production, and you cannot box score scout in this league. Like, It doesn't matter. Like, people are arguing with me via DM that Chop was a bad first-round pick. We should take Graham Barton.
He was really good in game 2. It looks like it's starting to click, bro.
Deion Dawkins, we'd be blessed to have a left tackle like that on our damn team right now, right? He's a top 12 left tackle in this game. Chop Robinson was walking him back pretty heavily. And now he's just got to learn to finish. But when and he was chasing down ball carriers. When that defense looked like it was ready to quit, Chop Robinson was still pursuing after the football, man. Like, you got to do a better job before you crucify football players to understand what their role is in this team. Chop Robinson was better than Jalen Phillips in week 2. No one wants to talk about that.
Yeah.
Quentin Bell, man. That guy was the 1 week of training camp superstar. He's on a milk carton since, right, dude? Good for Chop Robinson. I do think against Seattle, he's going to line up against a good front. But I think Chop's going to get his first sack in Seattle. I think it's going to happen. And he's a building block, not a bad thing. And I think Anthony Weaver and Mike McDaniel will be here to stay no matter what happens with the front office. But I do think that there could be some big changes coming. Who knows what those could look like. But I'll say this, the offensive coordinator that I would like to bring in to call the plays in a scenario that you outlined would be Brian Daboll, because he's going to get fired this year. Bill Belichick is going to get the Giants. I think he's going to get full control and full reign. I would love to see Brian Daboll in here, especially if Tua Tagovailoa is healthy. Reunite those guys, man. That would be fun.
Yeah. I agree. And let me address this in the chat. Tua is not trash. Tua just led the league in passing last year, okay? And these same people who are claiming they're trash, go watch them post-game after we beat Denver. These same people who are claiming he was trash, they were apologizing to everyone and calling Tua a franchise quarterback after we beat Denver. So just because they wake up one day, feel one thing, and then wake up another day and feel, and these are the same people who said Tua would never lead the league in passing, Tua would never be in the MVP conversation, Tua would never be a legitimate starter. All these people have been wrong 10 or 12 times with their takes on Tua, but they get they're kind of right on one, and all of a sudden they're right. No, so you can't be trash in this league and lead the league in passing. And again, Tua by his own peers was rated what? Top 36. 40 player in the NFL?
36. Yeah,
36.
Man,
thank you very much.
Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. It's a good platform. There's so many good people, man. I was dying laughing when I saw our girl Jennifer Forbush.
You see that?
Yeah, I was dying laughing, man, when I saw.
Oh, she wasn't having it, bro.
I was snorting, man, when I was laughing so hard when I saw that. But man, like, these people that live their life to jump into someone's comments to trash another human being who is far more successful than you, like, it's just laughable, right? Like, it's laughable. Like, your comment reigns supreme over the voice of all the NFL players that voted for him, right? Like, it's just weird. It's weird behavior, man. It's such a like the people that are running around like I told you so. Tua's frail and he got hurt. Go get bent, man. Like, get a life.
You taking a victory lap off someone getting hurt? That's crazy to me.
Yeah, man. Like, get a life. Go kick a ball around or something. Go get
exactly. Go touch grass.
Like, it's so it saddens me. Like, I'll say this, dude. Like, I'll joke about and banter with other teams' fan bases, but dude, Damar Hamlin, right? Like people don't know this. The last draft interview I ever did when I was at Pro Football Network was Damar Hamlin. He was at Pitt. I covered the ACC. He agreed to an interview. I interviewed him over the phone. When he was down on the field against the Bengals, man, I literally was sick to my stomach, throwing up because I felt so bad for the young man. And he, and it's like crazy to me. The people I've seen take victory laps or post the posturing and stuff, man. Like,
crazy.
Dude, I'll tell you this, man. Keep an eye over your shoulder. Karma always comes through.
No, what's crazy about all these people, they told everyone Josh Rosen was the future. They were wrong. They told everyone Bridgewater and Brissett would take to his job. They were wrong. They told everyone Skylar Thompson's QB1. They were wrong. They told everyone Tua would never be a franchise quarterback. They were wrong. They told everyone Tua would never be in the MVP conversation. They were wrong. They told everyone Tua would never be a legitimate quarterback in the league. They were wrong. They told everyone Tua wasn't talented enough to ever lead the league in passing. They were wrong. I just named like 10 times they were wrong on the position. What are we talking about? You know what I mean? Like, lunacy.
The other day when I had my fantasy football draft, one of my friends told me, he's like, man, Driscoll, you're an idiot, dude. Like, you had a chance to be a Ravens fan in 1996 and you would have 2 Super Bowls. He's like, if you could do it all over again, what would you do? I said, stick with my Dolphins.
Yeah, man. Obviously.
Like, sure, like, cool. You guys won 2 Super Bowls, but you quit on the teams you grew up loving to jump on to the next thing. You know, you're at dinner with your wife and you move on to somebody else just because it looks like it's better. Like, I don't operate like that, dude. Like, I will say this. I want a Super Bowl bad. I want it more than anything in my life. If I never get it, I'll have no regrets being a fan of this football team, man. And when I got to it for the first time in a post-game reliever, I believed in this Dolphins team to make a run. And it was because of the quarterback. Like, dude, like, you see Pat Mahomes, there's not a tree outside where Pat Mahomes grows on them, man. Like, that's not how the world works, dude. It results. It takes hard work. It takes grit. It takes perseverance.
And how many teams passed on Patrick Mahomes before the Chiefs traded up?
Right, man. Like you're entitled because you're a fan of a team to win something. That means nothing. Like, these players bust their ass. They put their life in harm. And
there's also 52 other players in the quarterback and a coaching staff that need to be held accountable for wins and losses too. It's funny. Wins and losses aren't a quarterback stat when the quarterback wins, but when the losses come, it's the quarterback's to blame. Make that make sense, right? It's just hypocrisy.
It is, man. And I know, that's one thing I'm really not going to do this season. I'm not going to get into that shit this year. I'm not going to fight with people. I'm not going to get it. I'm going to block and move on. I'm just saying, if you want to interact with me and you post that stuff, I'm telling you right now, you're getting blocked. I am not dealing with it this year. I do not deal on cheering for the downfall of other human beings. And I do not definitely stand for people that are excited to see other people get hurt. These people are they have families. Like, I don't operate like that, man. Like,
well, these are the same people that also told us to trade for Deshaun Watson. You want to talk about paying a guy money and being in purgatory? The Cleveland Browns are somehow in a worse position than we are. And these guys if these guys would have had their way, we would have Deshaun Watson, who's absolute trash, and on top of that, we would be stuck with over $250 million guaranteed being paid out.
Right, 100%, man. It's dude. God, man. We're gonna realize now. You're all gonna see it. How good Tua Tagovailoa was. It starts this week in Seattle. You're gonna see it. We're not gonna have we're not gonna have the number one offense in the entire NFL. Like, that's what that quarterback allowed us to do. You're gonna see it for the naysayers, man. And this isn't here saying that there isn't flaws into his game. I'm not making excuses. He played like crap against Buffalo when he played in the first half.
But those first two interceptions weren't on him. Now the third one was all on him. That was a terrible decision. One of the worst. Yeah, that was the worst interception and decision he's made in his career. That was awful.
But we've all been there, man, not just on the football field in life. When things aren't working out in situations, sometimes we just try a little too hard. Like, that's it is what it is, man. But we're gonna learn how special he was here. And for me, closing note, all I care about, man, get better to we're thinking about you. The real Dolphin fans aren't here. We care, man. We're concerned. Like, I haven't slept more than 3 hours since this happened, man. I am up. I am miserable. I feel like it's a family member of mine going through it. It has made me feel empty in my stomach. It sucks, man. And I just want all I want, whether he plays or not, is the doctor report to come out and say that this guy is okay. That's all I want, man. Like, I know, like, this Dolphin fandom, the results will come next. Like, I know you're the same way, man. This is a guy that we've spent a lot of time. I mean, you break down his game every week, every play he does. Like, you don't do that unless you have a love for a player, right? Like, he's on my Mount Rushmore. He's on my Mount Rushmore with Zach Thomas, Dan Marino, and Ricky Williams. Like, he's on my Mount Rushmore of players of all time. And, man, just get better to it. We love you, brother.
Yeah. And, people are going to be like, oh, Reason said he wants Jackson Dart. No, I said if the Miami Dolphins are going to the draft and they're targeting quarterback, then I would like Jackson Dart. This all depends on to his health and everything moving forward here. You got about a minute. Final thoughts, bro?
Yeah, and look, because you have that conversation, like, the Miami Dolphins are going on, whether Tua or any other 53-man leave, if Tyreek Hill got arrested, never played again, whatever happens, the Miami Dolphins are going to move on, right? Like, so we have these conversations because these are very real scenarios. Like, the Miami Dolphins right now probably don't even know in their own office what the outcome of this scenario is going to be. So, like, these are real conversations that matter. But, man, hey, look, we got to rally behind our favorite football team. For me, I'm actually going to go the opposite. I'm not going to have a breakdown. I'm going to be more positive because I think anything that this team does right now, it's hard to do this, man. I've been on the football field where I've seen one of the guys that I play football with get carted off because he got broke his neck. I've seen this, man. It is hard to bounce back from that. And it's one of those things, dude. Like, this team means a lot to me. The interactions I have with fans and everyone means a lot to me.
Doesn't matter it doesn't matter if we care about Tua or not, Lewis. Like, this is what people are not understanding. It doesn't matter what you want. It's about what he wants and what he decides. We have no impact.
Yeah, because I do believe this, and this is what I'll say to wrap up for me. I do believe that people own the right to their own destiny, right? Like,
yeah,
I've done things in my life that people say, Neal, don't do that. And you know what? I've been burned many times and made the wrong decision. And that's, why probably I'm still standing at 42 is because I had to learn through tough decisions and tough mistakes. Like, I will say that Tua has earned and deserves the right to make the decision. I can care about him, but I'm not a doctor. The doctors can bring me the CAT scans right now, and I'm looking at gibberish. I have no idea what it means. You have to trust the professionals, but I do think that we have some waiting to do. We have to be patient, and it's all going to play out over the next couple of weeks, man. But hey, it's a tough time to be a Dolphins fan.
Yeah.
We're used to it, and we got to rally together, and we got to pray and hope that things go in the right direction here. That's it.
All right, guys, I'm going to be back tomorrow. We're going to break down the film from the game. Shout out to Daryl. He says Chris Grier is the Forrest Gump of O-line construction. And he said, Reason and Neal, your two are G's. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Appreciate all of y'all coming through. And we'll see you on Thursday for the next episode of Fin Too Deep.